Recap: a 29-year-old doctor working nights in an old Roman hospital and a 28-year-old nurse notice strange things. Lights that flicker without reason, instruments arranged into patterns, and a patient who speaks of figures from long ago. Together with a seasoned surgeon and the hospital chaplain, they follow the trail from CCTV glitches to sealed basements and a carved stone slab that should not exist beneath the wards. Tensions rise, beliefs and fears clash, leading to a heated argument that splits the team at the worst possible moment. This story follows the narrator as he tries to hold the hospital together while the past presses up through the walls. Watch to discover what lies under the hospital and what choice will decide their fate. Chapter 1: Night Shift. My name is Luca, and I am 29. I took the night shift at San Angelo Hospital because the schedule fit, and because the city seemed quieter when I walked home past the ancient stones. Elena, 28 and the fastest nurse I've ever met, had been here for 3 years. She wore navy scrubs and always kept a pen behind her ear. I wore a white lab coat over scrubs, a tired tie, and a coffee stain that refused to leave. That first night felt ordinary until the monitor bank in ICU threw static. Elena and I stood in the fluorescent hum, half asleep and half alert, watching one feed go black and then show what looked like a thin silhouette moving against an empty corridor. We laughed it off, too much coffee, too little sleep, until the old woman in room 12 started whispering names none of us had heard before. The names sounded like a list from a book you would only find in an archive, not in a hospital room. Outside, Rome's bell tower tolled 2 in the morning. Inside, the building felt older than it should. Some of the plaster peeled in shapes that looked like faces. By dawn, Elena and I had a list of small, peculiar things. Instruments in odd arrangements, footprints that led nowhere, and a ledger with names that matched no record in the modern system. The hospital hummed with history and something that wanted attention. Chapter 2: Signs. We began to collect evidence like detectives with stethoscopes. The morgue drawer that had been shut tight the night before had a damp smudge on its edge. The operating theater light swung when no one touched it. Once, in the abandoned wing, metal scissors were arranged on a tray in the shape of a circle. Elena kept saying it felt personal, as if someone tried to communicate in the only language they had left out. We pulled CCTV footage. One camera stuttered for a beat, and then showed a dark figure pacing an empty hallway. The clip froze at the exact moment our own camera angle showed nothing. The glitch looked deliberate, not random. We called in Marco, stalwart, 52, our chief surgeon, and Maria, the chaplain, who was quiet and measured and wore a simple clerical collar. Marco's broad shoulders and pragmatic voice steadied the team. Maria's calm cut through the hysteria. That as we dug through the archives, I found photographs of the hospital from decades ago. Faces in those photos matched the names scratched in the ledger. There were dates written in a hand that trembled but did not stop. The hospital, it seemed, had kept its own secrets. Chapter 3: Below. We opened doors the hospital had not meant for us. A rusted elevator took us down beyond the basement. The air grew colder. Brickwork older than the hospital's official construction glazed the walls. We found a small chapel, candles long dead, and an iron gate with a Latin phrase that had been half scrubbed off. Elena read from a brittle ledger and found a patient list for an outbreak long since hushed. Names matched the ones whispered by the woman in room 12. I felt the hairs on my arms prickle. Marco insisted we leave certain things alone. Some history, he said, had a habit of sleeping best when undisturbed. Maria, however, suggested a vigil, a prayer that might let whatever was restless find rest, that we formed a plan to document everything. We were careful but not careful enough. The hospital, it turned out, was not content to be observed. It wanted to be noticed. Chapter 4: Fractures. The nights grew worse. Machines spiked as if in pain. Monitors shouted alarms only to be silent a breath later. I found footprints of water on crisp white sheets with no source. Elena found a note written in a shaky script and placed on a bedside table. A single word that pulled at my throat. Stress builds small things into big things. Elena and I argued in a cramped administrative office while the building seemed to listen. I wanted us to call in an external team, paranormal investigators, or at least the police, to document every anomaly. Elena feared exposure, feared the hospital losing funding, and feared being laughed at. She thought we could close the old wing and quietly bury the problem. I thought silence was what had hidden the truth for decades. Marco paced, frustrated and angry at our hesitance. Maria tried to mediate with prayer and reason, but the argument split us when we needed unity. It was the worst timing. The hospital responded like a living thing to our fracture. Lights hummed louder, a distant child's laughter echoed from the drains, and the pieces of the night arranged themselves around the argument like vultures circling a wound. Chapter 5. The Chamber. We found a hidden chamber beneath a tiled floor. Old brickwork, a stone slab with names carved deep into it, and a small wooden box inside an alcove. The box held tokens wrapped in oilcloth, and a note written in an older form of Italian. Please, apologies, and a list of those who had been moved through the hospital during a fever 20 or 30 years ago. When I opened the box, something in the room shifted. Shadows convulsed on the plaster. A breeze rose though no door stood open. Maria intoned a prayer softly. Marco wanted to destroy the tokens and be done with it. Fast, clean, final. Elena wanted to record, to preserve the items and the story, to make sure the living could know what had been hidden. In that stone room, the argument from the office became something else. The air took on a voice of its own. We realized the hospital had been keeping score. The names on the slab were not merely names. They were threads, and someone or something was tugging them. Chapter 6. Nightfall. The final night chose us. Alarms spiraled, monitors peaked and quieted, and the hospital hummed in an uneasy chorus. Patients woke from sedation. The chapel alarms chimed without a clock. Figures that had been glimpsed on camera moved in the corners of our vision. Elena and I stood shoulder to shoulder during the worst of it. Storied walls closing at dawn. We climbed to the hospital roof to look out over Rome. The city laid quiet beneath a pale light. The argument lingered at the edges of my mind, not fully resolved, not fully forgiven. We had decisions to make about the ledger, the tokens, and public knowledge. We had choices about the hospital's history and about how to move forward when the past refused simple burial. I would tell you exactly what we chose and what happened next, but some things are better seen than summarized. The night had its own sense of judgment and mercy. I can tell you this, the hospital does not easily forget, and neither do people who work its night shifts. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, give the video a like, comment your thoughts, and share the video with friends who love horror.